Hello, everybody, and welcome to another Bookish avec moi. And this time around, I'll be talking about the books that I have finished, which, yeah, I have books I have finished, and also books I'm currently reading right now. Yeah, so I'm gonna start with the book that I have finished, and I finished this book by Elif Shafak. This is Three Daughters of Eve. This is also a buddy read with Berna of Berna's Bookish Adventures. We read this book over the period of 2 weeks, and I think that this book is pretty nice. I generally like Elif Shafak's work, and I think that this book, in general, as a whole, did not disappoint. I did have somewhat of a high expectation for this book, and there were areas which I found to be a little bit forced or a little bit rushed in the middle of this book. So I gave it kind of like 4 stars out of 5 because of that reason. But I must say that the ending of this book is so I think that it is so satisfying. This book is about this woman named Barry. So we see Barry's story in 2 separate timelines. One is when she's a bit younger, when she attends university at Oxford. She's a Turkish, and so we see how she is at university, how she's like. And before that, we also see a little bit of her childhood and what happens in her household. Basically, she has a somewhat of a liberal father, a secularist father, and she also has a more conservative, quite religious mother, and she constantly sees this kind of clash between her parents in her house, and it is something that remains even when she is much older, when she attends university and her parents are still around. They still have that kind of quarrel, and as a result, Barry as a person, she kind of develops this kind of existential crisis of sorts, where she would have some doubts on religion and especially God. She considers herself as someone who has religion, but who practices religion, but not in a very devout way, because she is constantly plagued by this kind of doubt, and the relations or between her parents, and something in particular that happens which was quite traumatic to her family when she was a young girl, and also things that happen around her. This book also takes place in the year 2001, so there was this 9/11 going on in the background, and how it bleeds onto the world of Islam, and how it breeds or even exacerbates Islamophobia, and how that really affects her philosophy as well. And the second timeline of this book takes place some time much later in 2016, when Barry is a much older person and she attends this party. And it is during that party that she is reminded of the things that happened in her past, and she is reminded of her own stance, her own philosophy on God and religion. And it is there that she tries to kind of reconcile with things. And so essentially, this book is kind of like a character development book, with focus on this particular character and how she thinks about God. And on her way to kind of think about like what her stance is, and she remembers while she's at Oxford, she had this experience with 2 other students as well, and one particular quite particularly mysterious or something charismatic professor. And it is her encounter with these people that really fuels her her kind of quest to find herself and find the meaning of her relationship with God. So I think this book is really nice. I really like the way that this book ends, and but then I can't really talk about that without giving a lot of spoilers. Kind of reminds me of some of my earlier book talk videos where, you know, they would be very spoilery. So if you want to check those out, you can, but please remember that they are very, very spoilery. And they were spoilery because I was kind of like excited to talk about whatever things that are revealed at the end of a book, which, you know, is still something that I very much want to talk about right now. But lately I've been turning my book talk videos into the no spoiler zones. And so I kind of lost that chance to talk about those things. But this book is a buddy read, so I can talk about those things with Berna. So it's like, yeah. But if you have read this book and you thought that the ending, and you have some thoughts about the ending or the spoilery bits in this book, yeah, you can talk to me. You can reach out. You can send a message via Voxer. I'll have my Voxer name down below. But yeah, I think that this book has a quite satisfying ending, and there's this conversation happening there, and it feels like this book has an ending that was wrapped in like really nicely in a really nice gifting paper to you, complete with some really lovely bow there. So it's like, very, very nice ending. I just love it so much. So yeah, this is Three Daughters of Eve by Elif Shafak. Overall, a nice book. Yeah, totally recommend this one. I also finished other books this week, but I'm not going to talk about them because they are for the Booktube Prize. So now I have already finished all of the Booktube Prize books. I've already submitted my ballot, and yeah, just waiting for the results of the octafinals. So yeah, those are the books that I finished. In total, 3, including the, you know, Booktube Prize books. And yeah, moving on to the books that I'm currently reading right now. I am still reading this one by Carson McCullers, The Heart is a Lonely Hunter, which is a buddy read with Madeline from Made with Books. I'm not going to talk about more of this because I'm going to finish this book, and once I finish that, then I can talk a lot about it. And I am also currently reading this one after setting it aside for a few weeks. This is Nawal el-Saadawi's The Fall of the Imam, translated by her husband, Sherif Hetata, or rather her ex-husband. And, you know, first, I just found out that the author has passed this week. So that's new information. Back to this book. When I started reading this one, a few weeks ago, I thought that it was very disorienting, you know, because this book, it does not really emphasize flow. If you have some kind of conventional expectation on flow before going to this book, then I suggest you to throw it out of the window, because if you don't do that, then this book is going to help you throw it out of the window for you. So really, this book does not use flow in its narration. So essentially what happens in this book is that we have this illegitimate daughter of an Islamic preacher, an Imam, in a particular fictional country. So this illegitimate daughter, she is killed by a mob of the Imam's people. And around the time, there was also this big feast holiday going on in that place, and the Imam is there. The Imam is also murdered at the big feast. But then this book also pulls a "is he dead" kind of thing to us, because that Imam also has a bodyguard who acts as his double. And essentially what the bodyguard does is that the bodyguard would wear his face and act like the Imam himself, like carry, behaving like same way as how the Imam would behave, and all sort of stuff. So there's also kind of confusion surrounding the Imam's death, like whether is he or is it other people, other person? Is the bodyguard the ones who died, and all of that? I still don't know what really happens because I'm only like 50% into this book. But what surprised me was when I picked this book the second time, and I had that dread coming in because I read it before for like 20 pages or so. I was surprised that I was able to read 60 to 70 pages within 45 minutes, which to my standard is pretty fast. For some books, I can't read that fast, but for this book, it was really surprising because it has that structure and I was able to read it fast. And I was able to get the story, and I thought that the writing is quite unique. It has a particular character to it. It's still quite challenging because not only it does not emphasize flow, it's super non-linear. Basically, the time jumps is like happening everywhere. But not just the time jumps. We also see jumps in POV. Basically, you see POV just randomly changes from first person point of view to a third person point of view. And then, not only that, you also have first person point of view from a particular character jumping to a first person point of view to a different character. And I'm not talking about different point of view per chapter. I'm talking about point of view jump between point of views within the same chapter, and they usually happen without warning. Like, you are reading a particular paragraph talking with the voice of a particular character, and then the next paragraph it starts to sound strange, and then you realize, oh, it's a different point of view, and there's no indication, there's no break, there's pretty much no warning for that. And so it does feel kind of very confusing, disorienting at times, but somehow I was able to kind of just read it. So I'm really surprised. I am super surprised by that. I'm going to continue this one. This is also the book picked during the BookTube spin hosted by Rick McDonnell. This was the book number 15. And by right, I should be finishing this book before March ends. But yeah, I guess it really depends on my time. I just simply couldn't get into this book in February and March. So yeah, very likely I'm going to finish this book in April. Who knows? Anyway, another book that I am also currently reading is this March of the Mammoth book, which is... apparently my mammoth has been sleeping for the most of March because I've only started this one. I did announce kind of like earlier in February, I think, that I was going to read this book, but nah, I did not read this. This is Wally Lamb's. I know this much is true. So my mammoth has been marching really slowly, and for the most part, my mammoth has been sleeping, and it just started marching, and it's not even a march, it's more like a slow stroll in the park, smelling the flowers and stuff like that. This book is something that I just started like a few days ago, and I think it's kind of interesting. It is quite shocking. It has a rather interestingly shocking graphic first chapter, which involves the loss of a limb. So I don't consider that spoilers because it's something in the beginning of in the first chapter. Someone could easily put it into a blurb somewhere. But yeah, there's a loss of limb in the first chapter. I was like, okay, there are pictures of babies in here, and it's like the first chapter has someone losing their limb. So yeah, that's interesting. A fine way to hook a reader in. This book has 48 chapters, and I still don't really know what this book is about, and I would prefer to go into this book dark, blindly. And what I plan to do with this book is to read this book one chapter per day, which was something that I did with Mary Barton by Elizabeth Gaskell last year, and surprisingly it worked. it worked in this weird way, because with that kind of reading plan, what I would do is that I would just limit myself to one chapter per day. And I would try my best to read one chapter, and at the same time try my best not to read more than one chapter. So it's kind of like disciplining yourself, but at the same time restricting yourself, so that it feels like you're watching an episodic TV series that happens every day. And it worked, although it took some time, but it worked. So this one would probably take like 48 days for me to finish, so that would be more than 1 month. Probably I would finish it in May. But let's see how it goes with this one. I think this one is really interesting. I've heard of so many nice comments about this book, and I'm excited to get into this one. It seems to be a domestic fiction that centers around the relationship of two brothers, and yeah, that's nice. I like that one. And what else have I been reading? I actually have been reading like a lot of books also, but I've been focusing mostly on these. Another one that I've kind of been focusing on is something I'm reading on ebook, and that is Eleanor, Oliphant is Completely Fine by Gail Honeyman. This book was originally something that I read by listening to the audiobook narrated by Kathleen McCarran, and I thought that the narration was nice. I really like her voice when she's narrating the story. It feels quite, cozy, and it's just so pleasant. But there are parts, especially the dialogues of the book, that it really has this like really strong Scottish accent to them that I couldn't really catch whatever the characters were saying, and so I had to refer to the text. And sometimes it doesn't really work when I'm doing other things while listening to this audiobook. So what I ended up doing was that because I also had the text of the book, I have an ebook. I now just read the book from the ebook, but by reading I mean I get a text-to-speech software to read it for me. So it feels much easier. The dialogues, it feels it's clearer to me, especially when I'm doing other things, when I'm listening to the book, and and I don't really have to refer to the text. I think that the book so far is quite interesting. It is about this woman, this youngish woman. I think she's in her 30s or something. She sees a guy, and she thinks that this guy is the perfect guy for her. Like, this guy is the perfect partner for her. And what I expect from this book is that this book is going to go into this character development arc where she learns something from it. And this story also has this character ruminating on how other people behave around her. She has, but the main point of this book is that she has this kind of somewhat unhealthy infatuation or expectation on this guy, someone who she just knows. She just saw this guy one day, and she thinks that, this is the person for me. So yeah, there will be some kind of revisiting of the past in this book, which I think is going to be quite interesting. But I spoiled myself with this book. Yeah, I know the ending somewhat, especially concerning one of the characters in this book, which is the mother of this character, of this main character. I know what goes on with that. So if you have read this book, you know what I mean. You know what I've already known. The forbidden knowledge. I've already known. I spoiled myself. You know what? Last week, I also spoiled myself with one of the books that I was reading. And it was like, I did not even Google the name of the characters. Before this, I used to spoil myself by Googling the name of a character. I spoiled myself with A Little Life by Hanya Yanagihara, because I was kind of like, my hands were itchy. And then I found out what happened. And so with this book, I wasn't really Googling something specific. I was just Googling the title of the book. And yeah, I knew beforehand what happened. So it seems like spoiling myself is a pretty recurrent thing that happens in my life. So there's that. So I guess that's it for the things that I'm currently reading and I have finished. Like my updates on my bookish life. And yesterday was my birthday. And I'll see you again in a different one. So until then, thanks for watching. And take care. Bye bye.